might be shit. Before you get carried away. No, welcome to the advance party. You know, when Floss said, do you want to do some stand-up at a party? I didn't read the email. I thought it was a birthday party. But this is something else. I'm just going to do a bit of stand-up for 5 minutes because, you know, I love these guys. I love, you know, Ben, Floss, David. They're all great guys. And, you know, if you don't know who I am, my name's Leo. I'm from Scotland. In case you're wondering, you can't understand the noise coming out of my face.
Shout out to the Scots.
Have we got any Scottish people in here tonight? Nice. Good to see you out spending money. That is good to see. It's just nice to see some Scottish people in London who aren't aggressive begging. That is good to see. And what an event! I can't believe we've got protesters outside. That's exciting. Calling us Nazis. What a joke. You know what I mean? Oh my God. Well, I think if anything, that's extremely offensive to actual Nazis. I think if Hitler came back today and he saw a group of multi-ethnic people, a lot of whom are liberals, campaigning for British values, he'd be disgusted. These are the sorts of people who fought the Nazis. I hate socialism. I'm an open-minded guy. You know, I can see the good in communism. You know, I'm a fan of communism because it's actually the leading cause of death of communists. But yeah, hope not hate. You know, hope not hate the disgraced far left group. Man. You know, a senior member of Hope Not Hate was arrested and convicted for paedophilia charges. And that makes me diverse enough for Keir Starmer, who just yesterday said to be British is to be diverse. It's like, what about the ones who aren't? Are they still British? You know what I mean? It's like, you can say what you like about Keir Starmer, but I think he's done a wonderful job. He's the best Prime Minister Mauritius has ever had. He really is. He really is. People say it's racist to want to control borders. It's not. You know, I want to stop the small boats because you know I've just seen the impact mass immigration has had on London. Just in the time I've lived in London, like so many Somalians have arrived that parts of London just don't feel like Bangladesh anymore. It's crazy. And stopping the boats isn't racist. Stopping the boats is sexist. Let's be honest, if those boats were full of hot Somalian babes, you know, all topless like in the National Geographic, like the men here would be down on the beaches saying, "Come on in, ladies, mind your feet on the cobbles," you know. But they're not, it's all blokes. So we don't. And let's be honest, if it was women coming across in the boats, the French would be stopping them leaving. And also, if it was women coming across in the boats, all the liberal women in Britain would be down on the beaches campaigning to get the borders closed. They'd be like, "Stop these people coming in." No, it's ridiculous. It's, yeah. Anyway, I've talked for long enough. I'm going to bring on Richard Thompson now, who's going to introduce some of your speakers for this event. So thanks for listening. I'll be Leo. Cheers.
Thanks, Leo. Goodness me, how am I gonna come after that? I did ask them to actually get a shorter host, so I'm not really too happy with that. I have to just adjust these slightly. So yeah, hello, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for coming for what's going to be an absolutely groundbreaking day for British politics. My name is Richard Thompson and I'm the National Director for AdvanceUK, and if I look completely exhausted, I can guarantee you that it was in the job description that Ben gave me when he asked me to take on the role. But honestly, it's an enormous privilege, and it's a 24/7 job filled with phone calls, meetings, press releases, more phone calls and last-minute by-elections. And you finish the day completely exhausted, but you still feel overwhelmingly positive because you know deeply that what you're helping to build is something so crucial for this country, and you're doing it with some amazing people that care so passionately about what we're trying to achieve. Now, it is an honour to be speaking today, but it did make me reflect, and I certainly wouldn't describe myself as a professional communicator. Publicly speaking doesn't really come very naturally to me, but it did help me sort of think about the message that I had and what I wanted to discuss. And I thought back to a speech delivered recently by a serving MP at a certain party conference. Now, this MP was quite clearly told what he could and couldn't say. Entire sections of his speech have been forensically reviewed and censored. And this MP is no longer serving with that party, and I'm sure many of you could hazard a guess at who I might be talking about. But it wasn't the MP or the individual that struck me, it was the culture. It was the party so fearful of its own message that it didn't trust its own representatives to speak freely. And then it dawned on me. At no point had Ben or anyone at AdvanceUK asked to see my speech. Nobody was looking to steer or censor anything. I can see Ben looking a little bit uncomfortable, probably wishing he had done. But that, ladies and gentlemen, should really tell you everything you need to know about the mindset and the values of AdvanceUK. Because freedom of speech isn't a slogan for us, it's a core value. This is the party that trusts its people. This is the party that believes in independent thought and that the people's voice should be heard and not managed. Now, we are very fortunate to have some remarkable public speakers within our ranks. Ben, of course, being one, the amazing Howard Cox, another. In fact, our college is full of really incredible communicators, some of whom we'll hear from today. But what really excites me is that this party promotes and gives a voice to anyone with a voice that wants to be heard. People like Sarah White, given the space to do her exceptional work. Or Tim Power, our Deputy National Director, helping to build the structure that our future leaders will grow and develop from. In fact, all of our regional directors are genuine champions of the people, and I can't wait to see what incredible work that we continue to accomplish together. Now, in fact, I would invite everybody to try and find them out, because ask them how you can get involved locally, because I genuinely mean it, this is a party that will listen to you and hear your voice. Not career politicians or showmen, delivering rehearsed speeches in front of flashing lights and pyrotechnics, but genuine, authentic people with conviction, courage, experience, and integrity. For too long, we've had slick, opportunistic, self-serving people, and look where that's got us. What this country needs is genuine people, people from the real world, backed by a party rooted in principle, intent on delivering real change. Now, for the time that I've been involved in politics, and whenever I've spoken publicly, I've often opened with something along the lines of how I'm not a politician. I'm like everyone in this room, I'm from the real world, dealing with the consequences of the distant, out-of-touch, globalist political class. My background is in the armed forces. I was in the Royal Marines for 8 years before I went into the financial technologies industry. So trust me when I say that politics was not on the cards. But my job, essentially alongside the incredible team of the Deputy National Director, the Regional Directors, the organisers and branch chairs, is to help to build a structure that gives our members a voice. Because as I said, we are the party that believes that the people's voice should be heard and not managed. Because you, our amazing members, are genuinely the beating heart of this party, and the structure that we will implement will enable you to have a voice and will enable the college, as well as Ben, to have your finger on the pulse to what matters to you and to this country, and then help feed that insight back into our college to help them on their decisions around policy. And we need people like you. We need you to be active, to contribute, because this country is in crisis and we need to save it. The United Kingdom is without question the greatest in the world. We gave the world the Magna Carta that birthed parliamentary democracy, the standard in the Western world. We abolished the slave trade and enforced it globally. And we stood up against tyranny, even when we stood on our own in the darkest days of the Second World War. Ordinary people doing extraordinary things with extraordinary resolve. And we see that today, up and down the country. People taking a principled stand. Just take a look at Braintree, Crowborough, Epping, Merseyside, Blackpool, all of these people, all of these places up and down the country, too many to name, of people being fed up of not being listened to, being at the back of the queue. Do you know, I often joke about, from my time in the military, in the Marines, when I was on operational deployments, and I would be kicking doors down to apprehend some rather unsavoury people, to now politely knocking on doors to deliver leaflets. And it helps to remember which approach you're using. But my time in the military, it really sort of taught me many things, but one real endearing life lesson which I hold close to my heart, and which is self-motivation. When times are hard, physically and mentally, you get up and you keep moving forwards, and that is the spirit of AdvanceUK. We need that from all of you. We need to have that spirit, because we need busy people. We need courageous people. We need self-motivated people, because we are taking a principled stand, and we can only do this with you. Because only together, with you, can we advance the United Kingdom. Thank you.
I can't be with you today, but as you may have guessed, I'm a little bit busy. I'm a little bit busy in Gorton and Denton, pounding those streets, handing out leaflets and trying to get people to vote for AdvanceUK. Now, I've stood in this election with my own little manifesto, and I just wanted to let you know what I intend to do if I am elected in this by-election in Gorton and Denton. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a local grooming gang inquiry, just local, and I'm going to make a public inquiry and we're going to publish the results. And if it can work here, and if we can hold people accountable, then other people in other areas will go, why can't we have that here? Why can't our MP do that here? And that's going to be the domino that's going to help this country. And we need to get to the bottom of the grooming gangs. I want to know which officers, which council staff covered this up, ignored it, turned a blind eye. And we'll get that information, and we've got the proof of being done this. I'll be naming them in Parliament. And let's see what happens then, eh? Shall we? The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use part of my salary, because who needs 96 grand to live on? I don't. And I'm going to fund a on the streets youth project tackling knife crime, because I don't want any kids dying on my watch. I don't want any more kids dying in pools of their own blood. So I personally will fund a project in the area to tackle knife crime. Because one of the worst thoughts I have at being an MP is having to sit in front of a mum who's crying, telling me how her son was stabbed to death while I was their MP, and why didn't I do more? And that's a really good question to be asking your MP. Why didn't you do more? I don't want to be sat in that position. I'll be doing my best on that. And then I want to be looking at the councils. This area crosses Manchester Council and Tameside Council. And as you know, an MP has no influence over the councils. But I sort of do. It's called embarrassment. It's called access to the press. It's called being able to speak in Parliament. So I've got some influence there. I'm going to set up a hotline where members of the public and council staff can report incompetence and waste to me. And I'll flag it to the public. I can't do anything about it, but I can tell you about it, and then maybe you can kick up enough fuss to get the council to change. I want to embarrass them that much that they want to change themselves. How about that as a strategy? We make them do the work to improve themselves. Otherwise, I just keep telling the press what they're doing wrong. The next thing is about crime in general. The police have lost their way. I used to be based in police stations. I used to train police officers, and they've lost their way now. They don't serve us anymore now. They're more like a political enforcement arm, and I'm sick of that. Their priorities should be our priorities. We should be telling the police what we want in our area, because it's our area, and they're public servants. We pay for them. But at the moment, they tell us their priorities, which is cracking down on free speech, arresting people at demonstrations, calling at your house because you've said hurty words on Facebook. They're not my priorities. So I'm going to ensure we get a top senior police officer every month at an open public meeting where they can update the public on what they're doing, their strategies, and then the public can tell them if it's good enough, what's going on, why they're failing, what needs to change, what their priorities should be. It won't be to report crime, because you'll do that somewhere else. I'm talking about holding the senior management of the police to account. It'll be uncomfortable, but do you know what? We're paying their wages. We're entitled to make it uncomfortable. My fifth point is really about me, because I can't exactly hold the police to account and drag them over the coals if I'm not willing to do the same myself. So I'm going to do 10 where the public can pull me over the coals. I'll update them on what I've done that month, what I'm going to be voting on, why I voted certain ways in Parliament, and then people can tell me what they think about me. Because it's not really fair for the public to wait another 2, 3, 4 years before they judge their MP. You should be judging them basically on a monthly basis and telling them this isn't good enough. Because they're our boss. They'll be my boss. And any job you do, your boss tells you all the time if you're doing good or bad. And that's what the public need to be doing to MPs. And I'll implement that there. And the reason why I've picked these 5 things is because I know I can do these things with no help and no money. There's no point me promising the world and then saying, oh, the government won't give me the money to build that new road or build that new hospital. So what's the point of promising it? I'm promising 5 things I know I can do with no money, no help and support from councils or the government. And that's how you're going to judge me. Because they're 5 things I guarantee will be done if I become the MP for Gorton and Denton. And if it works here, and if I can get change here, we'll have people across the country going, I want my MP to do that. Stop with all the big ideas, stop with all the lies, stop with all the propaganda. Do smaller stuff, but get it done. Because it has to start somewhere. Let's start with the smaller stuff and get it done. Little improvements add up, and we'll encourage other people to improve things. But at the moment, just saying, vote for me, and if I win, Keir Starmer has to resign. It's like, are you mental? Keir Starmer's not resigning by losing a by-election. I don't think any Prime Minister's ever resigned over losing a by-election. They expect to lose by-elections. And whoever wins this by-election, it will not change the country, because it's one by-election. But if they vote the right person in, it'll change the area. So that's me. That's why I'm standing. That's what I'm going to do. So enjoy the rest of your day with AdvanceUK. and hopefully I'll see you soon. And if you're near Greater Manchester, get in contact and volunteer. We've got 3 weeks now to win this election. Thank you, and enjoy your day.
This is Britain, where freedom was written. Not a story you're taught, a story you're given. Built in defiance, paid for in blood. Forged in alliance, founded in trust. Rome arrived. But we resisted. A kingdom took shape. Law drew the line. An unbending faith, forged in Christianity and tested by time. A nation stood on its own. We looked outward. The seas opened. Iron, steam, the modern world was built. Everything was tested. We held. Words became power. Ideas became machines. Stories went global. Music moved the world. That's our history. But our future is up to us. An AdvanceUK government will fearlessly protect our inheritance, honour what was built and secure it for future generations. A culture worth defending.
Ladies and gentlemen, I said that we had some remarkable public speakers within our college. You're going to hear from a few of them now. The next one up is the amazing Norman Fenton.
Ladies and gentlemen of AdvanceUK, I wouldn't have been able to get away with saying that at an academic conference. I want to speak about how our universities have been the cancer corrupting our culture. Even the United Arab Emirates won't send their students here anymore. They're afraid their children will be radicalised by the Muslim Brotherhood and Marxists. I suspect they're also wary of their kids coming home believing that men can get pregnant and women can have penises. So it's a sensible decision. I mean, why pay for indoctrination when TikTok will give it to you for free? So after 47 years in academia, as student, researcher, lecturer and professor, I speak as an insider who's watched this rot spread from within. And it's far worse than people realise. For many years, I was taken in myself as, a socialist who generally believed that the system was serving truth and justice. I know exactly how the indoctrination works. I eventually woke up. And when I publicly challenged, for example, academic claims on COVID and climate change, the exaggerations, suppressed data, enforced conformity, I was branded a conspiracy theorist and quietly erased by institutions I'd served for decades. Dissent's no longer debated, it's destroyed. Just last week, young freedom fighter Montgomery Toms was attacked on campus for politely inviting debate on remigration. His friend Will Coles, who I saw is here today, he attempted a citizen's arrest on the attacker and was beaten by a mob of students and lecturers. Yet he was the one the police arrested. Because there's propaganda posing as news, and a generation trained to loathe its own civilization. Universities don't just reflect culture, they manufacture it. They train the teachers, journalists, politicians, lawyers and regulators who now enforce the worldview, capture the campus, and the culture follows. This cultural Marxist long march through the institutions didn't begin in the 1960s. It began in the 19th century with the Fabian Society, the wolf in sheep's clothing, preaching gradual socialist infiltration rather than open revolution. Debate replaced by dogma, dissent punished, conformity rewarded. Successive generations of credentialised conformists captured every institution. Fabian Tony Blair, he completed the job by ensuring that most 18-year-olds went to university for deeper and longer exposure to ideological conditioning. Most of them belonged in jobs or vocational training, not Marxist mills. If we're serious about recovery, we must shrink universities dramatically and remove the rot. This isn't a matter for timid reform, it's civilizational fight. Our answer is clear. Defund the DEI enforcers, policing speech and manufacturing grievance. Strip funding from political poison courses and teach Britain bashing as virtue. Restore universities to elite serious study, not activist daycare. Bring back merit and free speech. Reward rigour, not ideological loyalty. Cut hostile foreign funding that distorts priorities and undermines sovereignty. This isn't censorship, it's sanity. Not exclusion, excellence. Not nostalgia, survival. Every successful civilization defends its knowledge fortresses. Ours were captured by people who think that decolonising the curriculum means replacing Shakespeare with grievance studies. That ends now. We must take them back for merit, truth and survival. And if the Marxists hate it, they can apply for a safe space on another planet or maybe even China. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Norman. And now for our second helping of common sense, the formidable Kathy Glengle.
Hello. For those of you who don't know me, I edit a dissenting website called TCW Defending Freedom, otherwise known as the Conservative Woman, the true Conservative Woman. It is wonderful to be here with so many AdvanceUK members, so many like-minded people, all of us alarmed by the state of our country, its political descent into two-tier justice, censorship and corruption, its social descent into anti-science zealotry and intolerance, our freedom of speech curtailed. All of us, I hope, set on reversing this, knowing that it requires nothing less than national and cultural renewal. Thank you, Ben Habib, for founding a party that, at last, puts this front and centre. Also for inviting me to be a college member, and thank you, Floss, for inviting me to speak. It's an honour. The West is in a mess, and that's putting it lightly. Above all, it's in a state of moral collapse. On the one hand, we have Epstein's network of degeneracy. On the other, we have the Muslim rape gang's disgrace. These are not isolated examples. They're symptomatic of a deeper decay that recalls the fall of the Roman Empire. It has been said that civilizations usually die of suicide or murder. Well, we are dying of both. From the twin evils of homegrown zealotry and imported fundamentalist Islam. These are the colliding forces we're up against and have to take on. But consider first our own social suicide. The rapidly declining proportion of white British births, which at the current rate, according to one analyst, could fall below 50% this year. White women have turned their backs on babies and motherhood. 225,000 abortions a year. The spread of one-and-done families, and the growing decision to have no children at all, whatever the reason for this. These facts cannot be denied. Then take the careless attitude to children, the country's epidemic of fatherlessness, more babies born out of wedlock than in, over 3 million lone parent families, nearly all mother-led. Marriage out of reach for all but the better off, and catastrophic for the rest. Dismiss this as modern social liberalism, if you will, something that Kemi Badenoch's conservative realism dictates we can't and shouldn't change. Well, I don't. It is dysfunctional. It's an anti-child society that casts children adrift and turns them into wards of the state. It's a society with no future. Far from liberal, it's a product of social engineering, of that selfish, I'm all right, Jack, globalist establishment class. A class that refuses to acknowledge the cause of the malaise, its decades-long assault on the traditional family, and the feminist war on men. A war, I'm sad to say, men lost. A war that stripped fathers of their authority and rights, and that feminized men, or just made them obsolete. That replaced husbands with the state. That put babies and children in the care of strangers. A conquest that culminated in the 2010 Equality Act, which granted women permanent victim status, that marginalized white men and made them toxic. All this successfully prosecuted by a minority of radical feminists, helped by some honorary male feminists, knowingly or not fulfilling a cultural Marxist agenda. And yes, the Uniparty signed up to it at every stage along the way. Never mind the devastation it caused. More adults living alone than ever before. More lonely childless women. More emasculated men. More men alienated to the point of suicide. More socially driven same-sex relationships. More single parenthood. More isolation. The sense of belonging to family, community, and country lost. In short, an atomized, alienated, state-dependent society. This is the feminists' brutal legacy. No wonder today's young people are so vulnerable to identity politics, to victimhood and offence, to fictitious virtues and intolerant new religions, whether climate change, gender ideology, or Palestinian activism. They they have no foundations, no networks of family relationships, only female friendships and social media. Social atomization, Hannah Arendt observed, is the precondition of indoctrination and totalitarianism. It is the seedbed for oikophobia, aversion to home, culture, and heritage. But yet another step was needed to complete this disintegration. One final stop on the long march through the institutions, the destruction of biology itself. The big LG, I can't say it, LGB. I think I left off the TQ and INA plus. It's a gender and identity lie. The wicked lie taught to parents and children from birth that you can choose who you are. This was the final lie, the ultimate insanity that the uniparty establishment fell for. That marriage can be severed from biology and parenthood from gender. That men and women are transferable. That all family choices are equal for children. It's the same moral relativism that underlies all the other political lies, that multiculturalism is compatible with democracy. We won't do it without restoring and renewing our Christian-based marriage culture. That's for the procreation of children and for the good of both spouses. This is imperative if we're to arm ourselves for the confrontation with that second existential threat to our future, Islamic conquest. Above all, it means reclaiming and rebuilding marriage, not just as a religious preference, but as the indispensable foundation of a free and secure society. A society strong enough to build its defences against mass immigration and reassert the rule of law over incompatible cultures taking over our cities and towns. Winning that battle, in my view, cannot be accomplished without it. Thank you.
When we asked our next speaker to come and speak, he took one look at the weather and decided to stay in Alicante and instead send us in this video. The amazing Paul Thorpe.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is my absolute honour to have been asked to address such a wonderful audience today, and I thank Ben Habib and my fellow AdvanceUK members for this opportunity. Now, the amazing people of our United Kingdom have always risen to the toughest of challenges. No task has ever been too great, no order has ever been too tall. And behind our uniqueness as a people, our success, our bravery and stoicism is a very special type of human being. And we often, and quite rightly, celebrate what us British have given to the world. But we rarely recognise the hands that built our nation in the first place and then fought and died to retain it for future generations. Those are the hands of our wonderful and quite unique working class. In modern times today, it's our bricklayers, plasterers, labourers, emergency service workers, those who sweep our roads to keep them clean, and the men and women who rise at 4 a.m. to go to work in the cold and rain every single morning that are no longer celebrated or given the respect that they truly deserve. And in years gone by, it was the working class English longbowmen who saw off the French and who enjoyed their work so much that they managed to drag it out for 100 years. The working class heroes of Waterloo and Trafalgar, and those who gave their lives in their thousands in the fields of Flanders and on the beaches of Dunkirk and Normandy. The working class blood of our brave servicemen and women from 2 world wars that included my own grandfather. Yes, he too was one of that lot. And we should never forget nor underestimate their contribution to our nation, for it is the working class who keep our country alive. They keep it functioning and they keep it moving for those that have betrayed them. But times are changing at last in AdvanceUK, and with our amazing leader Ben Habib at the helm, finally we have a political party that truly recognises, respects and indeed celebrates the crucial contribution of these proud men and women, both past, present and future. AdvanceUK really is the People's Party. It's yours, it's mine, it's ours. And it loves the working class people of our nation.
Our next speaker is the incredibly righteous Ricky Doolan.
Not righteous enough to miss that step, but anyway. Good afternoon, London! We have made it. This is a big part of a great momentum that is gathering and building through AdvanceUK. Over 40,000 members in the opening months, and now a full house in the middle of London. You can celebrate that, somebody. So thank you to Ben. Thank you so much, sir, for starting this party and for allowing us to be here today gathered. And we're here on a very big task. We're here to save our wonderful nation, and save it we shall. And I noticed something up here. I think it's the most fitting venue that we could have started off in London. This is a house of God. It's a house of worship. And the message up there is that God is with us. And I want to say, Britain, God is with us. AdvanceUK, God is with us. And the Bible says something very important. If God is for us, then who could be against us? It means we are victorious already. Now, something that's been part of this attack on our nation, from the leftists, the Marxists, the Islamists, all of the ists. One thing they do in their assault on our nation is they try and dictate to us who we are. They try and tell us what our history is, who we are, what type of people we are, what the culture stands for. And each and every time, they try and distort the reality on the truth of who we are. We know who we are. We are the British. We are a great Christian country, and we are not backing down. Now, I want to read you something. Some of you may recognize it, some of you may not. It reads like this. Know that, having regard to God, and for the salvation of our soul, and those of all of our ancestors and heirs, and unto the honor of God, and the advancement of his holy church, and for the rectifying of our realm. Do you know what that is? It's not the Holy Bible. It's the Magna Carta.
But just look at the language in the Magna Carta. The whole document was dedicated to God. And which God am I talking about? I'm talking about the God of this nation, the Christian God. Jesus Christ is who I'm talking about. The Magna Carta set in motion the absolute foundation for liberties, not only in this great country, but across the world. It was the foundation for the Constitution in America and the Bill of Rights. It was the foundation for anybody to have fair and just justice, even for a jury to be amongst the judging party of anybody who is accused of something comes from the Magna Carta. And now we see each and every one of those liberties being betrayed, being regressed. And as AdvanceUK, we say no more, we won't tolerate it, we won't stand for it. Our liberties will be held. So this is the Magna Carta, which I read to you. And listen to the language, speaking about God, speaking about our salvation as a nation. Our ancestors knew the truth. Our ancestors knew that Jesus Christ is the one and true living God, and nothing else can change that fact. Now, tolerance is a very key virtue, but tolerance should never go over our foundations, our principles, our identity. Never in a million years. But that's what they're trying to do now. And what is so wonderful about AdvanceUK is that while we are advancing, we are going to look to the past. We are going to look to our foundations to bring a new future for our children and our children's children. Now, the final thing I want to say is that if you look at the House of Parliament, if you look at the House of Commons, where the debates take place, where many anti-Christian individuals and parties are throwing debates and opinions and policies at each other, many of them going against our Christian constitution, many of them going against our Christian culture. Well, do you know that very House of Commons used to be a chapel? Oh yeah, St. Stephen's Chapel, that's what it was. And the royal family used to worship there, and then they allowed debating to begin there. The very pews that the government... I want to leave with this statement. I want to echo a great ally of ours in the battle for freedom and the battle for our nations and culture, President Donald Trump. He said something that I am going to echo for Britain. We must rededicate this nation to Christ. Thank you so much.
Our next speaker is talking about a part of our culture that is very dear to me, our military. Ladies and gentlemen, Andy Dye.
It is impossible to talk about British culture without mentioning the part that our military has played in shaping it. My name is Andy Dye. I'm an ex-Royal Engineer and paratrooper. I served 10 years in the British Army. I am fiercely and unapologetically proud of my country, its history and its achievements. Like many of you, my grandfathers, great-grandfathers and uncles fought for our freedom in both world wars. The debt we owe them is beyond measure. Many nations have developed and lost a warrior culture. They're usually based on conquest and plunder. They're gone in a couple of generations, the blink of an eye. Our warrior culture is different. It is central to our 1,000 years of shared history, older than the United Kingdom and even the nations it consists of. It has endured and continues to this day because it has value. It is based on service, strength, honour, compassion, and a desire to protect the weak, especially children. Tommy Atkins is the finest fighting man that ever walked the earth. He has won 2 world wars, 3 if you count beating Napoleon, repeatedly saving our European cousins from each other. Some of them are even grateful. Through our empire, we brought civilization where there was none, along with light, power, sanitation, medicine, and education, sharing our ingenuity free of charge. It is fashionable among the degenerate left to sneer at our nation, its achievements and our empire. Why? Because they are unworthy of its legacy. They are unable even to maintain what better men and women built. We expended vast amounts of our blood and treasure to end transatlantic slavery. We only finished paying the debt in 2015. Who dares to denigrate us? Ladies and gentlemen, it is the covenant between our armed forces and our people that has made all this possible. We could not have defeated other industrial powers without those at home putting their shoulders to the wheel. The women who went willingly into the fields, factories and hospitals, even behind enemy lines, were every bit the warrior themselves. The part of the covenant that is now broken is that between we the people and our establishment. The military has never needed to be best friends with our leaders. Wellington called us scum, drunks and devils. We just laughed at the size of his nose. We have, however, always had the right to demand their loyalty. Can you imagine explaining to your forebears who endured what they did that our government would allow British soldiers to be prosecuted for the crime of doing their duty? Let's be clear, there is no autonomy on the battlefield. From pre-deployment training, through planning, operations and debrief, every action is micro-analysed. Rules of engagement are already written by weaklings and restrictive to the point where they favour the enemy. If wrongdoing is not immediately identified, no British soldier should face prosecution years later unless his chain of command, up to and including cabinet level, are co-defendants. The day that veteran prosecutions affect senior officers and politicians is the day that they will stop. As regard our elitist but far from elite leaders, by their deeds you shall know them. The Westminster culture clearly does not share the values that I set up. Strength, honour, integrity, even the desire to protect children are completely absent. They are not like us, we are not like them. We no longer trust or respect career politicians. The two-party system has been the first casualty. Our current situation is bleak, but we have faced worse and prevailed. After Dunkirk, my granddad and his mates never gave up. They took the fight to the enemy in North Africa, Sicily and Italy before we went back to Normandy on the morning of D-Day. By comparison, our outlook is bright with freedom in sight. It took our forefathers 1,000 years to build what we have today and only 30 years of malfeasance to drive it into the ground. The solution to our problems is obvious. As Ricky said, it doesn't lie in more change. It simply lies in restoring what we had. In rejecting outside influences, prioritising our national interests and handing power back to the people. AdvanceUK is determined to do exactly that. By coming together as we did before, rejecting tyranny as we have always done, men and women, old and young, soldier and civilian, from country estate to council estate, if we unite, our kingdom will prosper. By being in this room today, you have declared that you are ready to fight for this nation and its future. Together, we say to our political establishment, this is our country, not yours. Your time is over, AdvanceUK is coming. So stop lying to us, stop stealing from us, and get out of our way. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is going to talk about an industry that's been absolutely decimated by this latest government. I'm of course talking about our incredible bowler hat farmer, Mark Blyford. Hi everybody. I come with no notes, and that's for a reason. I can't read. I grew up on a farm, and I want to tell you about some of the things which I enjoyed as growing up as a kid. Some of the things which, on a farm, you're never going to get to do anywhere else in the world, especially nowadays. We climbed trees. We fell out. We stacked bales. They fell over. If anything broke, you repaired it with a bit of bale twine. All things what made us who we were. When I got asked to stand for the college, I genuinely thought to myself, what have I got to offer? But then I remembered. We've been blessed in this country. As kids, we grew up, we went to Sunday school. We were taught morals, we were taught values. Things what we've forgotten. Most of us hasn't. I travelled the UK last year with my partner. I know I'm racist because those who know me and know my partner will know she's black Nigerian. And for those who say the British are racist, excuse me, but fuck you. We travelled the country, we did 12,000 miles. We did Land's End to John O'Groats, like that, because I didn't really understand sat-nav. But let me tell you what we found. There wasn't one village, there wasn't one town where we weren't made to feel welcome. It's fair to say we've lost our way as a nation. As a country. The problem is when you dilute what the belief is, things change. I went to school, despite the belief, a Christian school. We had to take one of these with us, a Bible. We had to do particular things at a particular time of the year. Celebrate Christmas. Easter. See, guys, when I went to travel the country last year, I realised something. I thought in the start of 2020 that I was mad, and I was the only person who could see what was really coming about. Yet here I am in a room full of 1,000 people who want to see change in our country. As I toured the country, farmers came out, housewives came out, the kids came out. 20,000 people came to hear me speak. I'm just a boy. I'm just a guy who grew up on a farm. I've got no real education. Yeah, I've got one of those bits of paper to keep my mum happy called a degree. But where's the experience come from? Kids can't get a paper round anymore. They're not allowed to do anything anymore. I grew up in a village so remote that we used to go to play in the next village, and when the street lights came on, you knew it was time to go home. Guys, I've only got one thing left to say. Ladies and gentlemen, the next speaker is an absolute giant in comedy, more than just stature, Leo Kearse.
All right, I don't know why I'm doing two bits. I could have just done one big bit at the start, but yeah, man, I just wanted to come up here and talk about freedom of speech and why it's important, especially in comedy. You know, I've had people trying to cancel me. People successfully cancel me. I used to do a show every month at Top Secret Comedy Club in London. It's a great club. They didn't cancel me, by the way, but this complaint email, this just shows how people go out of their way to get offended. The complaint email said, we came to see Leo Kearse's show in July, and it was horrific and offensive, and we left in disgust. And then we came back to see it again in October. He's still horrific and offensive. Can you please stop putting him on? It's like, why don't you go and see somebody else? You know what I mean? Other comedians are available. People just want to get offended these days. Like, I got cancelled from some venues because of my comedy about trans people. I think we've got to be able to talk about this stuff. You know, we can't have transgender sports becoming a dumping ground. Like, female sports can't become a retirement community for mediocre male athletes. It's a nonsense. Even if it is more entertaining to watch, it's just not right, you know? Because you've got to understand, when you go through male puberty, you get certain advantages as an athlete. You get stronger muscles, you get greater bone density, it's easier to parallel park outside the stadium. I saw this, this New Zealand weightlifter, Laurel Hubbard. I don't know where he got his gender transition surgery done, but I read that he's got a 135 kilogram snatch. That's got to be one of the bigger ones, you know? And they say things like, I just want to be seen. It's like, Susan, you're 6'5", and you're dressed like a Japanese schoolgirl. Like, everybody can see you. Don't worry about that. You are not getting hit by a car, because frankly, you'd write the van off. And then people say, like, oh, how can you talk about this? How can you talk about this as a straight white man? It's like, straight white man? What do you think transgender women are? And I've been accused of thinly veiled Islamophobia, which, you know, would you be happy if I put a thicker veil on it? Would that make it okay? Mandatory. Like, I don't know, I think, you know, people get a hard time for Islamophobia, but Islamists are a little bit scary. Like, a phobia is supposed to be an irrational fear, but I find ISIS a little bit scary. Islamic terror, a little bit scary. You know, nobody's giving arachnophobes a hard time for being scared of spiders. And all a spider's going to do is scuttle out from under the couch and give you a little bit of a jump, you know? You know, not that I'm saying there's any similarities between Islamists and spiders, you know? Spiders have got hairy legs and kill a surprising number of people in hot countries, and... But Islamists are definitely scarier. Like, imagine if you got home tonight and you sit down on the couch to watch some TV and an Islamist scuttles out from under the couch. You know? It's Osama bin Laden going across the carpet. Look at his legs, they're going so fast. Look at his distended thorax. And he scuttles over to the curtains because he thinks it's his wives. And he disappears, so you think you're safe, you know, okay, he's disappeared, you know, he's behind there. I just hope he's not, you know, laying 500 eggs to create more Islamists, you know, which he can now. They've suspended the 2-child benefit cap. I hope he's not. I hope he's not doing that, and you think, well, I'll just go upstairs and have a bath to relax, and then you go into the bathroom, you turn on the light, and there's Abu Hamza in the bathtub. And he's struggling to get out, but he can't get any purchase on the shiny sides of the bath because his hands are hooks. That's terrifying. That's much scarier than a spider. You're supposed to get him in a pint glass and slide a bit of card under. The guy's 32 stone. It's not going to happen. No. It's ridiculous. We've got to be able to talk about these issues. We've got to be able to joke about these issues because that's how tensions are diffused. The left talk about social cohesion and how they want people to be tolerant. Like, if you silence people from talking about these things, if you stop people looking at issues like the grooming gangs, you're not improving social cohesion, you're damaging it, because those tensions are just going to bubble up and explode. And Britain is the birthplace of Western democracy. It's the birthplace of free speech, and that's got to be protected. Britain's culture has got to be protected. Thank you very much. Happy New Year. Cheers.
Thank you so much. I'm learning from you, boss.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, to deliver the first of our policies, please welcome Party Leader Ben Habib.
Thank you very much, folks. Now, normally, if you've heard me speak, I do it without notes. I thought since I was going to give you our first couple of policies, I might note some of them down, and I've noted them down for you. So this is going to be a relatively easy speech, I hope, for me to make, not completely coming out of my mind. But before I start, can I just say, isn't it peculiar that a so-called racist party has a multi-ethnic leader? You lot clearly don't know what you signed up for. But on a more serious note, there are some anti-racist people outside, and the reason we were slightly delayed starting this conference was because they're blocking our live stream signal, and we were trying to get that fixed. So for all their moral correctitude,
actually they would wish to silence us. They wish to silence what we have to say. We will not let them silence us. Now, when I first indicated on the 30th of June 2025 that I was going to launch, I was considering launching a political party, I set two hurdles for the party. The first was that we would have to hit 30,000 members. And I thought that might be a get-out-of-jail-free card, that I wouldn't hit it and that I could retire back to my normal life and say, well, I gave it a shot, it didn't work. Within a couple of months, we hit our target. And if you had said to me then that in 6 months, Ben, you will have nearly 40,000 members, you would have fought your first council by-election and got 12.3% in it. Where's the wonderful Alex Stevenson? And that you, at the time of speaking on your first policy, you would have a candidate standing in a by-election that has got so riled up my erstwhile party that they've been denouncing him non-stop on X. I won't name the party, I think you can guess. But for all the banging of drums that party does about freedom of speech, actually, it stands against it. It wishes to silence Nick Buckley. How astonishing it must have been for them that a political party wished to stand a candidate in an election. How bizarre a concept is that? But as Nick said, whatever happens in that by-election actually won't make a jot of a difference on the national stage, but in one respect. If we do well in that by-election, it will send a seismic shock through Westminster. So it was absolutely vital we stand. Absolutely vital, and that's why they didn't want us to do it. So to the extent that any of you have got free time coming up over the next couple of weeks, I plead to you, please go up to Gorton and Denton, support Nick Buckley, and let's win this by-election. Now, before I start on the first policy, I do just want to thank a few people. I want to thank the Emmanuel Centre particularly, because the location of this venue was given away earlier this week, and following the disclosure of the location, they were inundated with the so-called anti-hate people trying to shut us down, the anti-racists trying to shut us down, and they held their ground. And I'm very grateful for them. The only way we're going to prevail, ladies and gentlemen, is if we all hold our ground. We must not bend. We must keep standing up, whatever they do and whatever they say. I would also like to thank, you've heard her name a few times, some of you know who she is. Luckily for those of you who don't, she's here, Floss sometimes, but she got this together. I want to thank Françoise as well, who's head of events. Françoise is here somewhere, who's been instrumental in doing this. And then I want to thank David Rhodes, who habitually repeatedly tells me he wants to take a back seat. Well, for someone who wants to take a back seat, he's heading up the policy development of AdvanceUK. He's a phenomenal member of our college, and without him, we wouldn't have what I'm about to disclose to you. And I'd like, last of all, if I may, to thank the college for the hard work that they do behind the scenes. What I'm going to show you now is just a synopsis of our draft policies. This is not comprehensive. it took me ages poring through the document they produced to actually pick out the key bits that I thought I could get through in now 18 minutes that I've got left to speak to you. They are in draft because as we move forward between now and the next general election, we are going to continue to refine our policies. We're going to continue to make the public aware of what those policies are, so that by the time we get to 2028, 2029, we have a perfect, or as close as perfect, set of policies that have been thought through in great detail, and we're going to back it up with draft legislation. That draft legislation will be appended to our manifesto, and for those of the public who wish to read it, the exact direction of travel that we will set for this country will be known. There will be no ambiguity in our policies. It won't be a manifesto put together within 3 weeks. Isn't it peculiar, ladies and gentlemen, that political parties stand for government and they produce a manifesto 2 or 3 weeks before the election, full of nonsense, none of which ever gets delivered. That has to change. And so we will have draft legislation. And the benefit of having draft legislation, there's multiple benefits. The first of which is that the British people know precisely what it is we're going to do, so we can't let them down. We've made it crystal clear. The next benefit, and this is really important, is that the Lords can't interfere with it. The civil service can't interfere with it. When I walk into the Commons in May 2029 for the first time as Prime Minister of this country, that is the risk of being a leader of a political party. You may end up as Prime Minister, but when I walk into the Commons, I'm going to thump this document down, this draft legislation, and I'm going to look across to the opposite benches, and I'm going to address the Lords, the civil service and the British people, and I'm going to thump this document down and say, I have the democratic backing of the British people to deliver this agenda. We have one last chance to save this country. I think I can't remember who said it earlier, but it took 1,000 years to build this great country. It's taken 30 years to trash it. And we have to save it, and save it we will. Now, the first policy that we were going to draft was on immigration, because that is the thing that really exercises the people's minds. 80% of people in this country put immigration at the top of their concern list. But as we were drafting it, a couple of things happened. The first thing was that we realized, the group of people that were drafting it and myself, that actually there's something more fundamental that has to underpin not just our immigration policy, but all our policies. It is who we are. What are we as a country? Who are we? What do we wish to be? How do we wish to move forward? Unless you've established that principle, those sets of principles, you're at sea making other policies. You won't know how to make the other policies you need to make to save the United Kingdom if you can't first establish who we are. And I'm afraid, as much as Keir Starmer and the liberal globalist lunatics would like to categorize British culture as something of an inferior debate. They call it the culture wars. We're not going to entertain the culture wars. As much as they might wish to categorize it as that, actually British culture is what we're fighting for. When we went to war against Hitler, we didn't go to war for economic advancement. We went to war to save our way of life. to save our constitution, our culture, our people. And we are at that point again. There aren't guns being fired, but we're at a point where we have to fight that same battle for our way of life. So, the government, in its desire to set aside this nation, has defined cultural nationalism as far right. How many of you in this room were aware of that before I just told it to you? A few. The government of the United Kingdom has denounced British culture. If you look up far-right terrorism, you will find that it defines it as violence perpetrated in the pursuit of far-right ideologies, and one far-right ideology that it cites is cultural nationalism. Without a culture, we have no nation state, and they would like to diminish our culture. Tell us that those of us who believe in it are far right, and at the same time, tell us that cultures coming from abroad should be celebrated, championed, have a protective cloak put around them, and we should take the knee to their cultures. Enough of that. They have traduced our culture to such an extent that actually when people are asked, well, what does it mean to be British? We're reduced to ridiculous platitudes such as, well, being nice, being tolerant. Well, it's a hell of a lot more muscular than that, I have to remind people. British culture is a rich, woven web of brilliance. And I've highlighted a few points on the screen, as you can see. Morality, customs, behaviors, laws, art, music, architecture, a shared history, shared values, language. Why do they wish to denounce our national heroes? Because they want to cut our connection with our history, our common history. Why do they wish to decolonize the English language? Because if they can control language, they can denounce our culture. Why do they make laws like bringing into a body of British law the European Convention of Human Rights, the Human Rights Act? Because they want to set aside what it means to be a British citizen. This is the effect of 30 years of government policy. Well, it has to stop now. We know what British culture is. So I'm pointing at a screen down there because I can see what you can see up there, down there. And all of you will recognize what those words mean, and they play into each other. Morality manifests itself in our art. Our history manifests itself in art, in music, our architecture, our great forefathers who built wonderful buildings and statues, who now we're told are racist and they need to come down. That is just a lie. It is an attack on our culture. Culture is the foundational building block. It is the glue that allows us to identify who we are. Someone asked me before I came in to speak to you, are you a bit nervous addressing 1,000 people in the Emmanuel Center? And I thought about it for a second, and actually I wasn't nervous at all. And why wasn't I nervous? Because I knew I was coming to address a body of people who share my life vision. We are of the same culture. You are our family and I am your family. And that's how it has to be. There's something that I do want to just focus on a little bit. We tend to think of culture separately from law. And law has been used to defeat British culture. I touched on the Human Rights Act. But there's been a whole body of law that's been put into place, including, for example, defining far right as believing in this country's culture. There's been a whole body of law that has been attacking our culture. And if you have a body of law that informs you that you need to behave in a particular way, then you start behaving in that way because you don't want to break the law. And when you start behaving in that way, you adopt this new culture that the government is forcing down our throats. this multiculturalism, the ending of what you and I might identify as British culture. Law is upstream of culture, which is upstream of experience, which reinforces culture, which then informs parliamentarians on how to make law. There is a circle, and we have to reverse the circle they've been pushing down our throats for the last 30 years. So just to sum up, our culture is freedom, nation state, duty and patriotism. Being a British citizen is a huge privilege, but it comes with duty. You owe this country something, people. And you're all here because you're fulfilling your duty, because you see we're imperiled. That sense of, that contract between the state, between the people, it's not just about the state giving. We have to give back. And I'm so pleased to see so many people re-engaged, because you are all giving back to this country. You are going to save this country through that cultural commitment. I want to talk about aspiration and merit as well. We've forgotten what aspiration is. Every time something goes wrong, we look at the state and say, well, can you please save us? Can you do something? Can you spend more money? We've got 8 million people out of a workforce of 35 million who are surviving on universal credit. And yet we keep saying we haven't got enough people in the economy, we've got to take in more migrants. It is ridiculous. We need aspiration reinstalled in the United Kingdom, so people wish to come off dependency, wish to go into work, and we're going to reveal a couple of those policies in a second that's going to help do that. But as I said, law comes upstream of culture, and there are some fundamental legal changes that we would do on the first day in government. The first thing we would do, and it's kind of ironic, really, that we would be doing this, because it was us that set up the European Convention of Human Rights. I can't remember, again, which brilliant speaker earlier said that some European countries are grateful for us having saved them from the grip of Nazi tyranny. But we set up the ECHR not because the United Kingdom needed to be policed, its human rights needed to be policed. Our human rights have existed for over 1,000 years. It was the Europeans who needed the European Convention of Human Rights because they just can't help tearing themselves apart. But that European Convention of Human Rights has now been put into such, it's turned into a mill round our necks. In the pursuit of human rights, we are forgetting what it means to be us. And we're not being allowed to put British national interests first. We're not allowed to put British people's interests first. And in fact, we get the bizarre result that often we will protect criminals and denounce victims, as we've seen with the rape gangs. All of that comes from the European Convention of Human Rights as put into the body of British law through the Human Rights Act. That was one of Blair's initial gifts to the British people, and we are going to repeal it on the first day in government. We are going to abolish the Equality Act. There's nothing about equality in the Equality Act. The Equality Act produces inequality. It informs us that you will be judged by the color of your skin, your ethnicity, your religious beliefs, not by the content of your character. Quite the opposite of what Martin Luther King had in mind. The Equalities Act has to go, and that will go on the first day of advanced government. All hate speech laws will be abolished. And now the last one, and you might think, why the hell is Ben going back to the withdrawal agreement that got us out of the European Union. Well, the withdrawal agreement is a bastardization of the United Kingdom. It did not give effect to our leaving the EU. What it did was rearrange the United Kingdom's relationship with the EU. In many ways, it made it worse. And I think all of you know that if we are still infected with the global order, we will never be able to put this country first. And there's something particularly bad about the withdrawal agreement, and many of you, all of you perhaps, have heard me speak about it before, which is the Northern Ireland Protocol. We have become... A lot of people think Northern Irish politics is a minority sport. It isn't. When a country puts a flipping border down the middle of itself and heaves off over 1 million citizens to a foreign power, subject to foreign laws adjudicated by a foreign court, you know that country has lost its way. Northern Ireland... The Northern Ireland Protocol is not just about Northern Ireland. It is about us rediscovering who the hell we are. Are we going to stand by our British brethren, or are we going to throw them under a bus? I know what I'm going to do. And we are going to get rid of the withdrawal agreement. And there'll be a whole policy on how we're going to deal with the EU, none of which von der Leyen is going to much enjoy reading. Now, there's been a lot of talk of Christianity, and of course we are a tolerant country, but we must never forget that we're not just culturally a Christian country, we are constitutionally a Christian country. We must not forget that. How is it that it has come to be that people talk about the United Kingdom as if it's a multi-faith country? Sure, you can have different faiths. You can be an atheist. You don't have to believe in Christianity. But if you live in this country, you must recognize that this is a Christian country. Starmer wants to remove the bishopric from the House of Lords. Why does he want to do that? I mean, the bishopric are a pretty useless bunch of people now, because the Church of England itself has lost its way. But the reason he wants to remove the bishopric from the House of Lords is because he wants to remove the last constitutional vestige of Christianity manifesting itself in our constitution. He wants it gone. And then it's a hop and a skip to say, well, actually, we're a multicultural, multi-faith nation, and that's the end of Christianity at the heart of things. So the first policy we're going to introduce is that parliamentarians, public officers, anyone taking public office of any description has a choice. They can either swear on the Bible or they can swear on a neutral oath. But there will be no swearing on a foreign religious text. We will promote our Christian heritage, our culture. If you go back to the slide where I laid out what culture means, Christianity infuses every part of that, our art, our buildings, our statues, what we fought for. If you go into a church in this country, you all know this. You go into a church in a foreign country, and what you see are trappings of Christianity. You walk into a church in this country, and you see the trappings, obviously, of Christianity, but you see also, alongside them, the heritage of this country played out through remembering those who died in the various villages where these churches are, those who died in the great wars protecting this country, protecting our Christian heritage. Our church and our heritage and our great military past, which is very, very important to this country, they all go hand in hand, and we will reinforce that Christian heritage. And we will prohibit the conversion of churches to foreign religions. When you see a church being converted to another religion, that religion is basically saying, we've beaten you. We've taken your building. That is going to stop. How is it that our flags have become so toxic to the British people? There's nothing toxic about our flags. Yes, they're Christian too, by the way. They're Christian too. Maybe that's why people find them offensive. But our national flag, it'll be mandatory under an advanced government, that our national flag will fly on every building that is of public ownership. And we will recognize our great heroes and national figures. We're not going to allow statues to come down. If you let your statues come down, you forget who you are. And I did a debate recently at the Oxford Union in which I talked about Cecil Rhodes in glowing terms. You can imagine the kind of response that got. But the Rhodes Scholarship was bequeathed by Rhodes, saying that it should be blind to ethnicity and religious beliefs. Did you know that, folks? He was not a racist. He was a good man. And we are allowing our national heroes to be denounced. That has to stop too. And I want to also nod here, if I may, very briefly. I've only got 30 seconds left, but I'm going to go over time because there's a lot more to get through. I'm going to nod very briefly to the people Paul Thorpe remembered in his little speech. For every national hero we have, Wellington, Winston Churchill, Nelson, the Duke of Marlborough, behind them stood hundreds and thousands and millions of working class people. It is the British working class on whose back this country was built, and we forget them at our peril. When Nelson said, "England expects every man shall do his duty," people, the working class who manned those ships, weren't petrified, as I perhaps might have been. They cheered. They went into the French and Spanish fleet, bold in heart, and they laid down their lives to save our country. That is what culture is. The British working class are our culture. We will fund councils to promote quaint old things like Christmas and Easter. And we will speak English in every public sector. And of course, we have to do away with this decolonization of the UK. Again, that's an attack on our heritage. It's an attack on our culture. It's an attack on who we are. We will recolonize the curriculum. We will teach our Constitution to our children. We will teach them about the contract that the British state has with citizenry, where citizenry get privileges because they're citizens, but then they have to stand up for the country as well. We will teach our children how our Christian forefathers have actually been a force for good, not the kind of Christianity that the anti-racist lot outside would like us to think. And let me just remind everyone that our national anthem is actually a hymn. It's a hymn, and we will sing it proudly in every state sector school and all our universities. It will be celebrated. At the heart of all of this is the family. And we are going to protect the family. We are going to destigmatize actually having children. We're going to destigmatize women looking after their children. And we're going to do that practically as well. This idea that you should reward people who can't afford to have children through a dependency culture of handing out benefits is wrong. Benefits for having children should be removed. You should be encouraged to have children through the tax system. You should be encouraged to get married. You should get a tax break. For every child you have, you should get a tax break. And you should be encouraged to stay at home and look after your children by getting a tax break. Get the tentacles of the state out of my family. And now the last one. The last line here you might think is a bit odd. Why has he suddenly put in a tax policy under the family? Well, let me tell you, inheritance tax is an evil tax. It raises not much for the exchequer, but it's a fantastic tool for the far left because it forces families to sell their homes, break their connection with the country, sell their businesses, break their connection with the economy of the country, sell their farms, break the connection with making food domestically in this country. It is an attack on the connection between the British people, its heritage, our heritage, and the land. And that's what they want to do. Inheritance tax, if we want to save the country, inheritance tax has to go.
Thank you.
We have to reintroduce, I've touched on this briefly before, we have to reintroduce aspiration. You have to know that when you work, you will be rewarded for it. How can you go forward with confidence during the day if you think that every time you earn a pound, the government's going to reach into your back pocket and nick it, and then use that money actually to keep those people who refuse to work in the state that they can, and not just them, but foreigners who come to this country. We do need to make our accounts stack up. And other political parties won't talk about it. But we must cut back welfare. If you don't work, you will not get paid. There's no such thing as a free lunch. We're going to pursue British farming. I'm going to have to rush a bit, folks. We're going to pursue British farming. We're going to protect the countryside from new build housing. It's not necessary. We've got exhausted villages and town centres across the country, full of property that's vacant, that can be repurposed. You know why we can't repurpose it? Because of net zero. We can't repurpose it because of net zero, so they go and build on the green countryside. It's lunatic. And they take our country, once the countryside's gone, it's gone. We will reverse that. And we will prohibit the removal of farms from the fabric of British culture. Yes! Andy talked about the risk of prosecution when you serve this country, but there's also something else that we've done for our veterans, which is absolutely horrendous, or haven't done for our veterans, is we've turned our backs on them after they have served the country. We don't give them housing, we don't give them priority housing. We don't look after the mental health issues that they often have when they come back from war zones. We give them no mechanism by which they can come back from the extreme conditions in which they have fought to protect this country, to find their feet again in society in this country. We have to repurpose them, if you like. They need a helping hand when they come out. And we will obviously get rid of any, I mean, I love the way Andy said it, you know, if we're going to put an officer or a member of the military on charge, well, then it has to go all the way up to blooming cabinet ministers. That could be that's a good one. I think that will be the end of the prosecution of anyone in the military. We're going to get rid of dual nationality. Either you're British or you're not. We will define multiculturalism as an extreme far left form of ideology which we will denounce. Even integration's not good enough. People have to be assimilated into British culture. There can be no foreign religious courts in the United Kingdom. Calls to prayer. And as much as I would wish not to have to use the law to bring our culture back into balance, things are so out of balance that I'm afraid we have no option now but to ban the burqa. The burqa and the niqab are the outward expression of the repression of women. How did we get there? It also is an overt rejection of British culture. When you see a woman wearing the burqa and niqab, she is looking down on British culture. She is rejecting us. How can you be in our country, claim to be British, and reject Britain? And finally, I mean, we shouldn't have to say this, but finally, we will ban first cousin marriage. I've spoken for 6 minutes beyond what I was allocated. I'm going to shut up. I think you'll get another dose of me in a second. But I want to say one last thing. What you've just seen is just a synopsis of the draft policy. The draft policy for the restoration of our culture, which will underpin every other policy we make, is a thug document. I'm very grateful to David for having produced it, and if I may, I might take a bit of gratitude for having distilled it. Thank you very much, folks.
What a legend! What a legend! You wanna be on camera, bro?
Put me on camera if you want.
So we're here with, obviously, go there so we can get the whole thing. I don't know if you guys have seen this face. Have you guys seen this face? Put some W's in the chat if you have.
They will do.
Who are we with?
We can say, look, we're no, yeah, because we say it loud, we say it clear. Now the chat can finish the rest off. Yeah, they should know, yeah?
That's it. But I seen a video of yourself that went viral. Everybody was covering it. I even covered it as
one?
well. Where you got arrested.
At Braintree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What happened, bro?
So,
why did you even get arrested?
So I was circulated as wanted for violent disorder.
Right.
Where I was in Coventry, you may have seen, and I was attacked by. How you doing, bro?
Sorry.
You all right?
Nice to meet you, man.
Yeah, you too.
I'll get to you
and
soon.
I was, I was attacked and.
Wait, so you were attacked and you got arrested?
Yeah, I was attacked and then I got arrested. Yeah.
So this guy was attacked and then you got arrested.
But like I say, I'll tell you what I say is, look, you know, if we show too many truths, then that sort of thing happens, you know. You start, like, you say too many truths, you show people too much stuff. You've experienced it, Geese.
Yeah,
you lost your monetization, you got a very big channel. And look at your channel now, you know, it's been shadow banned.
Hey guys!
Sorry, but you're right in front of the camera.
Yeah, that's what they do. As soon as they see that you're bringing in alternative news, and they see this is the one that we've been censoring for long, and somebody started bringing it out, they instantly they close your stuff off. I can't even get PayPal, bro.
No, exactly.
That's how crazy it is.
I'm fighting now to try to get my monetization back on YouTube.
Wait, they demonetized you?
They demonetized me in.
What the?
They demonetized me in October.
Last year.
Last year, they confiscated all of the funds in my YouTube account.
That's exactly what they did.
So
everything that we made.
Everything. Yeah. So they confiscated everything.
Bro, it's like I'm listening to my own story, bro.
And then they told me I can reapply again on the 24th of January.
Don't have so much off.
You've
already applied?
I reapplied.
Right.
And now they said I'm waiting. I'm on the waiting list.
And they're going to keep you waiting
for 30
over
days.
30 days.
Yeah.
And they're going to probably, for me, they declined.
They declined.
And they said you can apply in the next 3 months.
Yeah.
And then bro, it's like a circle. Just keep you going.
I'm grateful, because I've got a couple of sponsors, so I'm grateful that they have me.
That's good, bro.
They don't want no recognition or anything, you know, so I'm grateful that they're helping me out, funding me to be able to travel to places. Obviously, I can't do as much as I was doing previous, but, you know, it is what it is. And
so what's the plan now, then, for yourself?
The plan?
Yeah, I'm assuming it's to double down, because that's what...
You know what, look, there was never a plan in the beginning. Like none of this was ever planned, and I never knew for 1 minute that it would explode into the way that it exploded. It was just started off with going to make a few videos, and then next thing you know, it's mainstream media, and we're viral everywhere.
Doing documentary on you.
Do you know what I mean? We remember that night, because we spoke that night,
that's
actually.
That's what I'm
we
saying.
spoke that night.
They even got... I don't know, that was Channel 4 for you, right?
That was Channel 4, that one,
Yeah, I never talking about Channel 4.
And then the next day it was ITV, then the day after that it was BBC.
And then it went on and other people catch it on and
do you know what
echo the same thing, even worse and stuff.
Everybody adds their little piece onto it. Do you know what I mean?
They take the bad thing that they've been reporting about you, then they add another bad thing
on top.
And then somebody else takes that whole thing and they add their own, and then it spreads and everybody sees you as a racist, far right and stuff.
Mate, listen,
it's crazy, bro.
It's crazy. I've never, you know, like, listen, to be honest with you, I'm quite happy, you know, if wanting better for my country, makes me to be far right, then so be it, you know, like, but it's, You know, like if that's what they think, then everyone's entitled to their own opinion. Just don't get upset when I've got my opinion of you. Yeah? Because if
Have you noticed the left can say whatever they want?
Yeah.
But as soon as you echo something that they don't like,
yeah.
we're
in the wrong.
Yeah, we're in the wrong, and we shouldn't even say anything.
Yeah, and I just think to myself, like, we're all entitled to our opinions. I've got so many labels now. I'm quite happy with a new one. I've been called a civic naturalist now. Yeah, so I'm quite happy with that one.
That's the new one.
I'm quite happy with that
that's
one.
The new one.
Yeah, I'm quite happy with that one. So.
You like that label, innit? You slap it on your face, you walk with it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because if you listen to one side, it is what it is. Yeah. But listen, we will double down. We will keep showing the truth.
That's right. I don't know if you guys know this guy's channel. You wanna just tell them.
AY Audits.
AY Audits.
AY Audits.
This guy started. He doesn't want to be. He didn't want to be in this position. He started because the mainstream media were not covering the thing that he's covering.
Yeah.
That's a blue ocean that he found. And he created, and everybody else follows suit.
Well, look, do you know what? Listen, there was other people before myself, that was doing it.
But
as well.
the style that you do it, the narrating, the way you do it, your style, the way you do commentating
Listen, I think that's what made it so popular.
That's
do you know
what I'm saying.
I mean? And that was what made it popular. We took it mainstream. We opened up a lot of people's eyes, you know, and we can be proud of that anyway. Do you know what I mean? And even yourself, with the eyes that you've opened up to situations.
Yeah.
Because I remember me and you talking about when you was in a refugee camp.
Yeah.
And how long it took you to get here.
That's right.
Yeah?
That's
and
right.
these are the things that, it's genuine refugees that are in situations like yourself.
You know the crazy thing is?
But another time we can talk about that.
No, the crazy thing is, a mainstream media did an interview with me about my situation, how I came to this country. They didn't even publish it. Bro.
They didn't publish it.
They won't even publish it. You know when it was done?
Yeah.
20th September 2025.
They're
It's not even out. Are you telling me they're taking so long to edit my interview with them?
They don't want to publish it.
They don't want to publish it.
They don't want to publish it.
Or maybe if they do, they're going to do like 20 seconds.
But
it's been lovely talking to you.
Yeah,
man.
no,
I'm
again,
glad
and
that
we'll
you're
do it
here,
again
bro.
sometime online, you know, because I remember what you said before, you know, about when you was in the refugee camp and how long you was there for, and the jump. And this is like people like yourself in that, like genuine refugees, you know, they're in that situation.
14 years, by the way. 14
yeah, but they're
years.
in that situation
My
where
parents waited for 14 years.
Exactly, done it the right way, you know what I mean? That's the way it should be done. Not jumping on a dinghy, and coming over and getting everything for free. Do you know? That's the way it shouldn't be done.
My mind, bro.
Even
Follow
legal
this guy,
migration, but
Yeah,
never
follow
mind. We're
this
getting
guy.
to that.
Thank you so much, bro. My man. Always a pleasure talking to you, man. Sick guy. Let me get a mic. How you doing? How do you find that?
Ben was fired.
Now, I want to get your opinion on the last couple ones.
Okay.
That's all right, you can stay sane.
We have time. I think it was.
I don't think
Go
so.
ahead.
The last couple ones. Ban the burqa. What? Oh, God. Ban the, half cousin marriages. Banned churches from converting to mosque. Banned the growth of Islamic stuff. I mean, that's something that a politician won't say no more.
It's very Trumpian. It's very Donald Trump. If you want a Donald Trump in this country, elect Ben Habib, because you'll never hear Nigel Farage say any of that. You certainly won't hear Keir Starmer say any of that. But every single bit of it was the truth. And it's something, like you said, other politicians are afraid to say. The only person who will say it is Ben Habib. That's why he's such a great leader.
And it looks like the public, the people are connecting with it.
Yeah, they're on fire. That speech was fire. I don't know how many standing ovations. I don't know how many standing ovations he got, but it was quite a few.
I think everybody stood up.
Yeah, it's very powerful, and he delivers it in such a gentlemanly manner. And still, you can just his words, his passion, you can feel it all come through, and it's genuine.
Yeah.
That's the thing that's important about Ben. It's not pandering to a crowd. He's conveying what the working class people want. They call themselves the working class. I call them the first class people, because
the first class.
The working class are the backbone of this country. They are the best and the brightest. They're the future of Great Britain. And the working class people are where it's at.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's always good talking to you, bro.
Yeah, you too,
I'll catch you at the very end. Yeah?
God bless you.
Good to see you, mate.
Good to see you. Finally, we got to meet in real life.
I know.
Oh, man.
First time I noticed you was when you got arrested outside the Downing Street.
No, that was not me. I don't think I've
you?
never been arrested in my life.
Right, okay.
Yeah, the police respect me. I respect the police.
Good.
But good to finally see you.
Yeah,
We've gone back and forth on
Shall we take a
online.
picture?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it with that logo. So good to see you.
So good to see you too, man.
It's like coming to a family reunion here.
I know, right?
Everyone.
Yeah. You know when you recognize everybody, you feel like you're home, right? Sick guy. I assume I can get a minute with you, right?
Yeah. I think we're about to start.
Just a quick one. While the public is silenced. So, I want to clip you this one. I only clip it on men, all right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know it's kind of dangerous to clip it on women. The last two, where did that come from? The boldness to address the public on those topics in terms of like, a lot of people are gonna call you Islamophobia for that.
Why?
Because you're saying stuff that we're not allowed to say anymore.
Yeah, but I'm going to say it. How can you be a Christian country and promote religions over and above into the detriment of Christianity? You can't be, you know.
That's true. And how are you gonna go? How are you gonna muster the public, not just this building, but the whole country support in you banning the burqa? Because that, if you was to say something like that, you instantly get attacked. You instantly get exiled, kicked out to the dogs.
Well, exile me. Try it.
I love your energy, bro. Nah, sick. But obviously we're just gonna start now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get another 10 minutes at the very end if you're generous enough.
Yeah.
But thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Thank you so much. And we need to get you on the podcast again. We've got a lot to talk about, especially after this.
Withdraw from the ECHR and the UNHCR halt new grants for indefinite leave to remain. Replace ILR grants since 2019 with time-limited visas. Stop all asylum reverse asylum grants made since June 2019. Stop granting British citizenship to foreigners. Stop new work visas for people from countries not on the power of green list, who cancel all visas granted to families and students. AdvanceUK will abolish all benefits for foreigners and encourage repatriation with a time-limited incentive. All foreign nationals must comply with the residence covenant. No crime, no political activity, associations, meetings, marches or sit-ins, no lobbying for foreign countries and no preaching. Illegal migrants will be arrested, detained and deported to the maximum extent possible. No exceptions and no right of appeal. Foreign prisoners will be deported. The Royal Navy will enforce our borders. Aiding and abetting illegal migrants will be a crime. This will include the activities of the RMLI and similar bodies. AdvanceUK will stop all payments for crimes. People smugglers will be targeted. AdvanceUK will create an immigration enforcement force and tribunal to deal with illegal migrants. There will be no right to appeal.
Ladies and gentlemen, to announce our policy on immigration, the man of the hour, Ben Habib.
I think I did warn you there was a second dose, didn't I? This is the policy which we had conceived this event for, the immigration policy. As I said, I think when I first spoke, that it's the preeminent issue exercising everyone's mind. And so, before I start, I just want to say this. Isn't it peculiar that even though it's the preeminent policy in the electorate's mind, we don't know where the Tory party stands on immigration. Yes, we know that Kemi Badenoch would like to increase the period of time from 5 years to 10 years for indefinite leave to remain.
Yes, we know that she now has reluctantly agreed to leave the ECHR, but beyond that, we've got no vision of where the Tory party is on immigration. And then there's another party, the leader of which has made a living on the back of calling out mass immigration for the last 25 years. But that party hasn't come up with a policy on immigration. Do we know what net zero migration means? That's the headline, but actually net zero migration could mean 1 million people coming in each year, as long as 1 million Brits leave each year. It's about as daft a brush as a policy as you could possibly come up with. And it's vital, therefore, that if these parties wish to champion the United Kingdom and the British people, if that's what they claim they wish to do, they need to come up with a comprehensive immigration policy for illegal migration and mass migration. And even though we're only 6 months old, or 2 months since we got our registration with the Electoral Commission, you will see from this brand new party a complete holistic approach to how we're going to deal with immigration. So it's not rocket science. These other parties could do it if they wish to. They just haven't got the courage to do it. The first thing we have to remember is that this is a national emergency. Our population is growing rapidly, not because we're all reproducing like rabbits, but because we have taken our borders down. This is an emergency. So the first thing an AdvanceUK government will do is declare a national emergency and we will use the authority given to the government after having been elected under that mandate. We will use the authority given by the national emergency to pass the laws that we need to pass to save the country being completely taken over by foreigners. This policy, like the last one, is in draft. It is a much thicker document that the committee responsible for it. The document itself is much thicker than the points I'm going to go through, but I'm going to pull on the main parts of that policy, focusing on the national emergency aspects. So this is not the policy that you may see into the long term from an AdvanceUK government. This is the immigration policy that we will use to settle the United Kingdom, save it from the trajectory that it's currently on. The other political parties are skirting around the issue. How is it that simply through the effluxion of time in this country as a foreigner that you suddenly get the right to stay here forever? How is it that we will take people in and say, well, as long as you're here for 5 years, you can break the law, you can be on benefits, you don't have to work, we'll look after you, and as long as you're here for 5 years, we'll then make you a British citizen. Well, no, sorry, forgive me. We will give you indefinite leave to remain. It doesn't make any sense. If you come to this country on a visa, either for student purposes or for work, you discharge whatever the permissions are, that you use the permissions that you had under that visa, and then you graciously absent yourself from the country. It's obvious, so we will abolish the granting, any further granting of indefinite leave to remain. But it's already taken quite a grip of the country. The Boris wave of immigrants, remember the guy who said he'd deliver Brexit and then stop immigration? He actually let 5 million people into the country under his tenure. And if we don't reverse indefinite leave to remain back to a point in time where that Boris wave began, we will not be able to save the United Kingdom. So we have to not just abolish ILR, we have to reverse it back to 2019 when Boris Johnson became Prime Minister. And we've got to stop. We've got to stop this preparedness to be all welcoming to anyone from any part of the world that claims that they're a threat at home. Asylum applications will be suspended. There will be no new asylum applications entertained. And we will reverse back to 2019, perhaps with one or two exceptions, but we will reverse back to 2019 any asylum grants. I know for a fact that the civil service has been issuing asylum, the right to stay in this country, not because the people applying for asylum deserved it, but because they just wanted to get rid of the embarrassing backlog of asylum applications. They wanted it to look as if they've reduced the asylum backlog, and so they're rushing through the granting of asylum status. So we have to reverse that back to 2019 as well. And for goodness sake, stop giving away British citizenship as if it's confetti. I spoke at some length in the previous presentation on culture. I spoke at some length about the contract that exists between the state and citizens. You can't possibly buy into a contract simply by sitting in the country for a period of time, which is where ILR ends up. First you get indefinite leave to remain, and then you're given a British passport as if it's a right. It is not a right. It's a privilege to be British, and we will stop granting foreigners British passports. And we've reached a stage under this national emergency where I'm afraid we're going to have to be pretty hard on people being allowed into the country for work. Visas will only be granted to people who are coming from a country that is on our new green list, which I will reveal in a second. We can't have wholesale mass migration from parts of the world that actually detest the United Kingdom. People have got to come. People have got to come from countries which hold us in high regard. Why the devil have visas been granted to students' families when they come here to study? What was the principle underlying that? It is ridiculous. So there will be an immediate cancellation of all visas granted to families of students. All work visas will be honoured, but when they come up to their expiry, the employing companies or public sector body that was employing these foreigners on visas will have to find British workers to fill those jobs. At the end of a visa, at the end of your time under your visa, it should be absolutely natural and expected, as I said, that you graciously go back home. This is our green list of countries. As I say, everything is in draft, so it may change between now and when the final policy comes out. But you can see from the list of countries listed that not one of them would pose a risk to the United Kingdom. And that's where we've got to go back to. Yes, we are an outward-looking nation, but we're being overwhelmed, and right now we need to protect ourselves, so this green list will define where we will take our future working force from, and students and people who we grant visas to. And the student sector has become a back door to actually coming into the United Kingdom, staying here for more than 5 years, getting ILR, and then getting British citizenship. They actually don't attend the universities. Many of them don't attend the universities that they were intended to, they were given a visa to attend. So we will require any student visas granted for that student to pay all their fees up front. That should focus their minds. There are 1.5 million foreigners in the country, 775,000, I think, from the European Union, who come from the withdrawal agreement, and I'm going to come back to that. The rest from other parts of the world, who are getting the benefit of our ridiculously generous state welfare system. It's costing us the thick end. These are the official figures. I think the figure's much higher. It's costing us the thick end of £10 billion a year officially. But 1.5 million times 10,000 each takes you automatically to 15 billion. And it's probably higher than that as well. I'm sure we all know that. So benefits for foreigners has to stop. Why did we even think that was a good idea? It's not an extreme policy not to give foreigners benefits. What is extreme as a policy is to do that in the first place. And we're going to encourage people who are here, foreigners who are in the country, to go home. That too should not be an extreme policy. It should not be regarded as extreme. Yes, it's radical compared to where we have been with this influx of immigration. But not once in the last 30 years, not once in the last 30 years have the British people voted for mass migration. Every single election, we have voted for less migration. We want it stopped. So it shouldn't be offensive to anyone that we encourage foreigners to go under through a consensual repatriation program where they're given time-limited incentives to leave the country. And then the other thing that we seem to have forgotten is that if you're here on a visa and you overstay your visa and refuse to remove yourself, actually you're now in the United Kingdom illegally. But we don't recognize that. We think they've come on a visa, we don't know where they are, we'll turn a blind eye, they can stay, they can go on benefits, they can take jobs from British workers and so on, and they can stay in the country. The first step is to classify anyone in this country who is here on an expired visa as being here illegally. And once we've cut mass migration and encouraged some people to go home, as I mentioned again in our culture policy, the importance there being the reintroduction of aspiration, the work ethic, and so on, we are going to have to replace those immigrants on whom we've become so dependent and so lazy in our own habits. We're going to have to replace them with British citizens. We're going to have to encourage British citizens to come back into the workplace. As I mentioned, there are 8 million British citizens on universal credit at the moment, 4 million of which are not even looking for a job. They're not even looking for a job. I do not accept for one moment that all 4 million have such significant issues with themselves that they are unable to come back into work. That 4 million figure back in 2018 was 1 million. That's how accelerated our state of dependency has become. So we have to refuse to pay welfare to people who refuse to work. And to encourage them to work, we need to take the knee of the state off the neck of the working and middle classes in this country. We must reduce taxes. It's actually of cultural, national importance. And if you can do the maths yourself. If you take away benefits of £10,000 or £15,000 a year from someone, and you then start collecting tax of £3,000 to £5,000 a year from that same person who is now working, The British taxpayer, the state of the United Kingdom, is better off by £20,000 a head. It's good economics. It's basic 101 economics. The Labour government doesn't get it. They tried to reduce the welfare bill by £5 billion. Do you remember this fiasco? They tried to welfare bill £5 billion, which represents 1.6% of our welfare bill. They had such a debate amongst themselves that they ended up actually spending more at the end of the debate in Parliament. It is an utter joke. An Advance UK government will absolutely cut welfare and cut taxes, get people back into work, improve their mental health issues as a result of that, and make sure that the British state is wealthier as a result of that. And the next slide comes to something that, again, no government of which I'm aware has done in the past. We take people into this country, we give them a visa, we give them all the rights to roam and to work and to take our benefits and so on, and we ask for nothing in return. We don't even ask for some basic commitments in return. Well, every visa granted under an Advanced UK government will require the adherence to what we now call our new residence covenant. They must obey the law. If they break the law, their visa is cancelled. They must only engage in the activity permitted by their visa. Why should they engage in any other activity? And of course, they shouldn't be engaging in political activity. We don't want foreigners coming to this country under visas and then using their opportunity in this country to promote foreign interests. They will not be allowed to advocate for foreign countries. They will not be allowed to process down Hyde Park, down through Parliament Square, and abuse of the British people on their route. That will be stopped. And they will not be allowed to proselytize, to convert British people to whatever their ideology is. That too cannot be allowed. So any breach of the resident covenant, which will be embedded in every visa, retrospectively as well, by the way, will result in the cancellation of the visa, the individual being classified as being here illegally, and then they will suffer the consequences, which I will come to in a second, of illegal migration. Somehow, the government has convinced itself, and many in this country, that stopping illegal migration is somehow an extreme thing. That actually illegal migration is the way of the future, that climate change is giving rise to large movements of people, that there's an inability through our adherence to the European Convention of Human Rights for us to actually stamp our foot down and say, no, you're not coming into our country illegally. The extreme policy here is not stopping people at our front door. The extreme policy is opening our front door and welcoming everyone in. It makes no sense. So in addition, obviously, to granting them the right to stay in 4-star hotels, on our air bases, in our social housing, getting free medical care, free dental care, free iPad, translators, cash in their back pocket, and goodness knows what else. Instead of that, we're going to do something radical. It's not extreme, it's radical because it changes from the past. We will recognize them to be what they are, which is here illegally. They would have broken our laws, so they will be arrested, they will be detained, and then they will be deported to the maximum extent possible. There will be no exceptions and no right of appeal. Suella Braverman, bless her heart, she's made a few bad decisions recently. Suella Braverman drafted something called the Illegal Migration Act, which started off by saying that if you enter this country illegally, you will never be allowed to stay in this country. By the time it became an act, that had gone. It became a shadow of itself, and that Illegal Migration Act has never been enacted. We must reacquaint ourselves with the notion that British law applies in the United Kingdom, and if you've been judged to be illegally here and judged to be deported, you will be deported. You can't appeal. Why the devil should you be allowed to appeal? And if we can't get their countries to take home those that they sent to us illegally, then we will sanction those countries, or we will remove aid from those countries, or, failing all of that, this individual, I'm afraid, will remain incarcerated for as long as it takes for them to voluntarily get on a plane and go home. And the last point, there have been so many points which are really needless to make, but if you're a foreigner and you've broken the law and you're in a British jail, there are about 100,000 places in British jails, and 10,000 of them are taken by foreigners, costing us over £50,000 per head per annum to keep these foreigners in our jail. Why are they here? Deport the lot of them. The Royal Navy, once a phenomenal force for the United Kingdom, dispatched across the globe in order to do the bidding of the Crown, now can't even stop a flipping rubber dinghy in the Channel. And it's not because the Royal Navy and the naval officers and cadets and everyone else are incapable of discharging their duty. It's because their political masters are not invoking them to do their duty. The Royal Navy will be given full legal protection, and it will be instructed to intercept dinghies, turn them round, and invite them to go back to France. I know France is an awful country, but we need to develop a bit of stiff upper lip and send them back there. And obviously, we'll give the Navy all the tools that it needs in order to do its job. And I tell you folks, if a dinghy full of single young men from Afghanistan, Somalia and wherever come up against a frigate that refuses to let it pass, I think they'll go back to France pretty damn quickly. They're not complete lunatics. And, Starmer makes a big thing about breaking the smuggling gangs. I don't know if he's aware that most of these smuggling gangs are based in Europe. It's there that the trade is taking place. There are members, however, in the United Kingdom who welcome people. And one digression. What you see, the people you see coming off Border Force boats and RNLI boats, they're the ones of which we're aware. There are many others coming across who are not intercepted and given a warm cup of tea and a Kit Kat on a state-sponsored British ferry from the middle of our territorial waters back to shore. There are many who actually, under their own steam, under their dinghies, land on our shores, and they are met by illegal smugglers in this country. And we must tackle those illegal smugglers. They must face the full force of British law. And, for goodness sake, stop the payments to France. What have we had in return? It would seem to us as well that the Home Office is hijacked. The job required to be done will not be done by them. So an AdvanceUK government is going to establish an immigration enforcement force and tribunal. And the IEFT, amongst its other obligations, will police the Residence Covenant. It will be the authority that is able to direct the police to take action where it needs to take action. And then to the extent there's a legal process which has to be gone through, it'll be the IFT that oversees that legal process. And again, there will be no right of appeal. There'll be no mechanism for some left-wing charitable entity interceding and funding the legal fees, or the government funding the legal fees of people who are here illegally. The IEFT will act, it will act decisively, and it will send people to prison and then deportation. And in order to give effect to all of this, there are a couple of things we need to do, which I've already mentioned. The first is leave the ECHR so our Navy can do what it needs to do. We can detain these people, we can incarcerate them, deport them. Leave the ECHR, reverse the Human Rights Act. But there's one other thing that we need to do, and I love this bit. I love this bit. We have to denounce, as I said in my statement on culture, we have to denounce the withdrawal agreement. And I'll tell you why we have to do that. Because the withdrawal agreement has in it this Northern Ireland Protocol, and in the Northern Ireland Protocol, it doesn't just require that Northern Ireland continues to stick and commit itself to the European Convention of Human Rights, as does the Good Friday Belfast Agreement, but it goes on to establish also European Union human rights laws in Northern Ireland. And unless we denounce the withdrawal agreement, unless we tear it up, if we enact the policies that I've just described in Great Britain as distinct from Northern Ireland, every illegal migrant will leave Great Britain and go to Northern Ireland. It will become a repository for illegal migration. And this, my erstwhile party, actually put that forward as their mass deportation policy, that they would leave the ECHR in Great Britain, but leave Northern Ireland subject to EU human rights laws and the ECHR, making Northern Ireland a repository for illegal migration and basically not achieving diddly squat, because everyone coming to this country will know that they're safe in Northern Ireland. But here's the thing. If you remove the ECHR from Northern Ireland and EU human rights law from Northern Ireland, guess where all the illegal migrants are going to go? They're going to go to the Republic of Ireland. What a shame. And how do you think? It's so obvious, I shouldn't be asking the question. I'll make it a rhetorical question. How do you think the Republic of Ireland is going to respond? It only has one response, the Republic. It is to eject from its own body of law the ECHR and European Union human rights law. If we do, this is not the aim of our policy, but I just want all Irish citizens to be aware of this. If we do what's right for the United Kingdom, we will save the Republic of Ireland. Now that took me 16 minutes, I think. No, 15 minutes. How long was it? 25 minutes, something like that. It took me 25 minutes to set out a set of policies which would save this country. People keep telling me, Ben, it's too far gone, you can't do it, it's too far gone. It's not too far gone. Yeah, so Now we come to the part, actually, frankly, that I enjoy the most, which is Q&A, which gives you the opportunity to tell me that, you know, what I've been talking about is a whole load of rot, or at least to cross-question me on it. Hopefully the latter, not the former. But before I do that, can I first of all just, again, thank you for coming. And so the other thing I would ask you to do is, when you leave here, speak to people about what I've said, explain to people that there is a political party that has the ability, the capability, the fortitude to deliver what this country so desperately needs. And that party is Advance UK, and they should join it. They should leave the other parties. So can we please move to Q&A? And I'll direct, we've got some microphones. There's a lady behind you in a t-shirt. Okay, right, you choose the questionnaires then.
Hello everyone, thank you so much, Ben. Thank you for this opportunity. If you have a question, if you can please put your hand up. We have a limited time, so if you can keep your question concise, we would greatly appreciate it. Thank you. We have 3 assistants, so just wait for an assistant to come over to you. Thank you. All right, we've got one question here in this section. You can introduce yourself and then present your question.
Oh, sorry. Hi, Ben. Thank you for having us all here again. My name's Nick. I just wanted to ask, based on the level of remigration type strategies that you're wanting to implement, naturally your critics are going to suggest that we're going to lose a significant workforce that we can't do without. What would you say to those people?
So, one of the things we're going to do in Advance UK is not create an economic policy until all the other policies that are required to be implemented, drafted and then subsequently implemented, have been drafted. So we know the implications of all the economic implications of all the steps we're going to have to take to save the country. This is another bit of joined up thinking I haven't seen any other political party do. They all talk about economics ahead of speaking about the fundamental issues that need to be addressed. You can't address the economics until you know what disturbance you're going to do to the economic organism by the other policies. So we're going to frame our other policies, and then the levers of state will act to make sure that our economy is protected from any adverse consequences of our actions. So, for example, I have said a couple of times now, we're going to denounce the withdrawal agreement. That is going to have the European Union hopping up and down in a state of agitation. And we will need a full economic response to the EU. It is a belligerent foreign force, and we will need to be prepared for it. We will be prepared for it. We will cut taxes, we will deregulate, we'll ditch net zero, we'll drill baby drill, we're going to make energy cheaper. So we will respond. This is a great nation. We will respond to any adverse economic consequences of our policies and make sure that we can ride through any problems ahead.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi. So we have Kevin here with a question.
Oh, thank you, Ben. I just wanted to get your thoughts because the WEF is a major issue. I know that globalism is really dragging us behind, and really we need to get our own house in order before we can be a force in the world again. Thank you.
Well, I can't believe I went through the whole presentation without mentioning the World Economic Forum. But when I was deputy leader of another party, we had a policy that we would denounce the World Economic Forum. There can be no good. There can be no good coming out of the richest people in the world meeting the most powerful people in the world behind closed doors, without an agenda, without minutes, without the public eye on them. I just want to say one more thing. Mandelson's, what we've seen with Mandelson is the tip of the iceberg. The reason Mandelson isn't already in jail, the reason he twice came back from political obscurity, put back into office, ennobled, made an ambassador, the reason that all happened is because the establishment is rotten to the core, and the World Economic Forum is part of it. Anyone who takes money from a billionaire, a foreign-born billionaire, to attend the World Economic Forum so he can speak on a program with Bloomberg is someone we should not be electing as Prime Minister of this country.
Right, we now have a question from Lila.
Thank you, Ben. Am I holding it right?
Oh, we can hear you, yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, the employment or unemployment is a massive issue, and obviously you want to get people into work. Yes, there's lots of people anxiety and then claiming PIP or universal credit, which is ridiculous. A lot of people, including myself, have fell under the having to be made redundant because of the national insurance hikes. It's hit charities, retail, hospitality, plenty of other places as well. How are you going to fix that and help there be more jobs back on the market? And how are you going to slash the DEI bollocks?
The DEI bollocks?
Yeah.
The DEI bollocks went, I think, in the first couple of slides. The DEI bollocks will be gone under an advanced UK government. But the whole... if you want to prevent people from doing something, like speeding, for example, what you do is fine them. That's what governments do, they fine them. Isn't it peculiar that in a country where we would wish to incentivize people to work, we keep fining them for working? We have to cut taxes. The left hate it. They hate it because they want the dependency culture, because they want to be able to control you through money, amongst other things. And so they want to tax you to the hilt. And they say, oh no, you can't cut taxes. We're so indebted. We'll go bust overnight. Well, guess what? If you cut welfare at the same time as cutting taxes, actually you create the virtuous circle that I was talking about earlier. So it's perfectly possible to actually get this economy firing on all cylinders again. Now, we're not facing, the problems this country faces now are much greater than what Maggie Thatcher faced in 1979, much bigger. She faced just an economic issue. We're facing an existential threat. The very existence of our country is threatened. But one thing she did, which was absolutely right, and we must have the courage to do it, is reduce taxes straight away. In her first budget, she reduced income tax because she knew she had to get Britain working again. And that's what we will do. We will get Britain working again.
Thank you so much, Ben. I've got Susie here from Essex with a question about digital IDs.
I have, yeah. Thank you very much for this. I live near Machete-on-Sea, as we call it now. I don't know if anyone saw in Southend-on-Sea the big machetes that were going around a couple of years ago. We've had facial recognition down our high street for a very long time now, since then, but now they're also putting them on crossings near going into, so basically facial recognition is creeping in and we haven't been told when it's happening, or I think we're being set up for a 15-minute city. So what would Advance do about the slow encroach of basically a communist society that I think they're bringing in.
So digital ID is being sold on a falsity. What the Prime Minister is claiming is that if we all give in to digital ID, wouldn't life be so much easier at one level, but also we'd be able to stop criminals and we'd be able to identify illegal migrants more and those who shouldn't be in the workforce, removing them from the workforce. Well, those who shouldn't be in the workforce, those who are here illegally, those who are scamming the system, are not going to have any documents which would assist us through a digital ID identification process. The whole thing is designed to control us. It's part of this state intervention in our lives. And even though he has backed off, like on so many things, from the Act of Parliament he was going to introduce for digital ID, you're absolutely right. They're continuing down that agenda. To be a company director, you have to have digital ID. Increasingly, to have a bank account, you have to have digital ID. You want to access an app, you've got to have digital ID. Your Apple ID is on your face. It's everywhere. And it's very, very difficult to control. But what we've got to make sure is that the state removes its tentacles from the people's lives so that even if apps and so on continue to have facial recognition.
Thank you, Ben. We have Dr. Chan Abraham here with a question on immigration.
Thank you very much. Well, you're holding it, okay. Ben, thank you and all the college for the great work on these two policies. Immigration began to be the ticking time bomb from 1971. And I would say that these two excellent policies are going to deal with the low-hanging fruit. 1971 was when mass migration from other than Commonwealth countries created the ghetto situation that we have now. The really radical way to deal with this problem is to revoke all visas, passports, rights to remain that were issued after 1971. Expand the list of tests, which will include being able to speak English as fluently as Ben and I. We're both immigrants to this country, and a whole range of others, some of which are contained in that test. And we will find that the cost of remigrating, and I'm talking about many people who have created the ghettos that now exist in our country, where it will be impossible to restore English and British culture. It will be cheaper for them to go back home with incentives, and this country can restore England's green and pleasant land. Speaking as someone who comes from Ceylon, as it were, whose father fought in Palestine against the Nazis.
Is there a question coming?
So the question is, will you consider going back to 1971 and passing primary legislation that revokes all of those and takes this even more radical approach? Thank you.
I think it's unlikely, is the frank and honest answer. We can certainly debate it in the college, but going back to 1970, revoking citizenship, a passport, is quite a demanding thing to do. It requires, you've got to be very careful for what you wish. If you start revoking British citizenship all the way back to 1971, there are very many good people who are going to be hurt by it. It is something we can debate, but I think that the policies we have established today will actually save the United Kingdom. It will reverse the damage that's been done. One last question.
Thank you, Ben. I think sorry, Ben, we have one question over here. That's okay. Daryl, would you like to stand up? So, over to you.
Thank you. Hello, Ben. So a very important reference was made to our proud history. And so to introduce my question, I don't think we should forget that there was a brutal English Civil War that changed Parliament, established Parliament, took the right of the King to make all the decisions, and there was no equality for the so-called working classes then. So basically my question is, when you come into power, And to coin a phrase that Trump made, how will we drain the swamp in Parliament so that we have principle-centred, ethical and spirited politics?
So, you know, when we get an advanced UK government, it will automatically have rejected the infestation of the Commons. I mean, what we're now seeing in the Commons is not really any reformation taking place. We're seeing a recycling of politicians from one party to another and actually embedding themselves in the system again. And they're masquerading as if there's some kind of reformation going on. But the candidates that we put into Parliament will be people who are basically new to politics. I mean, I like to think of myself not as a politician. It's harder and harder for me to make that claim as leader of a political party. But I've come to politics because I'm pissed off with what the government's been doing for the last 30 years. And our parliamentarians are going to be of similar people. I think you'd be very, very encouraged if you met, well, you should be encouraged by the quality of speakers we've had today. They've been phenomenal. And they're the kind of people we want in Parliament. And our election into a majority government will automatically begin to drain the swamp. There's still a big job to do. The Lords, a wonderful institution, a great British institution, has been brought to its knees through chumocracy, corruption, the globalist order, you know, jobs for the boys. All of that is going to need to be addressed. And all the policies required to address it will be made by the college in the forthcoming years. Constitution is right up there. In fact, when I talked about culture, initially I was going to talk about constitution and culture. To do a policy on constitution and culture would require so much of your time today that I thought we'd focus on culture. Constitution is critically important. And again, you don't hear the other political parties talking about it. The way to drain the swamp is to restore our constitution. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Ben Habib.
Well done, Ben.
From China, and 5 years later they said British manufactured goods were much better.
We know that. I think everybody knows that.
We all, exactly.
We know that when you buy from China, it will only work for a couple months and it will break down.
Exactly. So I was in Kenya, I've got guys in Ivory Coast. Britain should be exporting absolutely a load more.
Yeah, we should be making more and exporting more.
So I've sold to contractors in Kenya. 5 years later, they said, look, the UK equipment costs twice as much, but it lasts 20 times longer.
Exactly.
It's better. There are guys in Ivory Coast who want to do it. Yeah. And so I'm also saying we should abolish air passenger duty at some airports and bring more tourists in. So,
yeah, but it makes sense though. Because I know some people might look at Primark's prices and be like, whoa, it's cheap. I can get hundreds of t-shirts for £100. And then they might look someone like, Ronald Cabana or something, they might be like, oh, a t-shirt is £700, but that t-shirt will last long.
It lasts longer. Look, it's exactly the same with machinery.
So this was happening, and militarily, you can see that as well. We can use the events of Pakistan. They buy their weapons from China. Look what happens every time when they fight against India. Look when they fight against Balochistan. Their weapons don't work because they buy it from China.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we're doing. We're trying to shut down our factory. We're trying to shut down our steels so we can buy from China because we see it's cheap. And
No,
because
no.
net zero stuff.
No.
So we need to get that back going.
No. So I've been over to Africa, sold to contractors only that had Chinese stuff. They love the British. If you get the finance right, the thing is the UK civil service needs to be cleverer. UK Export Finance, they don't do the finance right. But you can use foreign aid money, saying, right, we're going to help you build infrastructure. Unlike the Chinese, we're not going to send our labour. You can use your own African workers.
Oh yeah.
And we're not going to say, if you don't pay back the loan, we're going to steal a bauxite mine or have a road toll. We want you to succeed.
Yeah.
So we could boost UK exports, stop our reliance on selling arms, and actually help the African nations build better infrastructure. The Africans get better infrastructure to prosper. UK boosts its exports of manufacturing goods. We prosper. We could do a win-win.
And therefore, we have more leverage. When it comes to tariff, it will actually hurt, and we can actually influence people to do what we want. Just
Correct.
like what Trump is doing.
So exactly.
Because they make stuff, they can tariff you and you're going to feel the pain.
So this is what I said to them as well. You can then use it as leverage and then actually negotiate for Britain. But people don't...
You get it, bro.
Of course I do, because I put British interests first. I want you to prosper. I want everyone to prosper.
Yeah, of
so,
course.
so
Thank
good.
you so much, man.
Good to speak to you.
That is good. I'm glad we put a mic on you.
What's your channel? I'll follow your channel.
Thank you.
So
if you haven't followed the channel, follow the channel.
Yeah,
right
because
now. He's about to follow the channel.
Yeah, because you're young, you see. I'm a 46-year-old guy. It takes
That's
me
still
well.
young. That's still young.
Are you on YouTube?
Yeah, YouTube. It's
Oh, yeah.
Baraka. Oh, and you meant to be open your YouTube. It's
No,
called
no.
Baraka. Oh, you want me to?
Baraka?
Yeah. There he is. There we are.
Good to meet you, Baraka.
Good to meet you, man. Common sense right there.
So you're passionate that the UK exports more to help Africa prosper?
I'm in favor of doing a lot of exports. That's the reason why you see countries like India edging gain the competitive advantage, and all the countries are fighting against India's trade because they know India produce stuff and people want them.
So the UK,
and we've lost that.
The UK still manufactures excellent construction equipment.
They still do.
Really good construction equipment. You could target lots of infrastructure projects. I spoke to a contractor in the Ivory Coast. Now, where you get clever is this.
Right.
The Chinese lend the money, bring their own Chinese labour, and they want the African nations to default. What we can do in places like Ivory Coast is we lend to them a loan in their currency, but they have to use 50% of that loan buying UK goods. But they'll do that. If they have a problem repaying the loan, the Ivory Coast government just needs to print more money. So you're giving them an easier get out than stealing their bauxite mine and they're stealing their natural minerals. If you look at Guinea, I bet anyone who's doing stuff in Guinea is saying, I'm going to steal your bauxite mine. They want to keep the Africans poor. They make them so in debt. The UK could negotiate in a more gentlemanly style, be pioneers and say, we want you to succeed. We're not going to steal your natural resources. We're going to lend to you in local currency. If your contract has any problems repaying, your government who you're working for just needs to print more currency. So we don't want the Africans to fail. We want to bring them up.
Exactly. And if you bring more Africans up, then you won't have to deal with illegal migration because they're working there.
They love their country and they respect the British because they say the British were the only people who wanted to help us build our infrastructure and they wanted us to succeed and they wanted us to have jobs.
And therefore you make partnership to the point where the British can be partnered with people over there who are working there, and then eventually if we see their talents getting bigger and stronger, we can bring them in to work with us.
Exactly. And
therefore you can actually get proper worker visa to the point where they're not just going to work in the NHS, but they can actually work in other places.
You get it.
This guy gets it.
No. So there has to be, which is what I'm putting to Advance, a policy for economic prosperity. It's doable. And how good would the British people would go out and spend more money when they hear that they're beating China and the African nations love them because they've actually helped them? Then, if some people who think about Britain in a poor way due to its colonial past, you're saying, yeah, but the Chinese claim to be wanting to help the African nations, but they want to crush them, but we're actually genuinely helping them prosper.
Exactly, and you can use so many examples of China destroying Africa in the sense where they give them the money, hoping they fail, so they can take whatever they think that they were trying to build. Look at what's going on in Sri Lanka. They're trying to steal the Jagar port. One of the biggest ports in Sri Lanka was built by China. And guess who owns the port now? China. Because they lend them money, hoping they won't pay back. So this
is what happened. This is what happened in Kenya, I think, with Port Lamu. in Kenya, they wanted the Chinese lent them things for the infrastructure project. They defaulted, and the Chinese then seized the port facilities. The British can show that we're not after corporate imperialism. We're after a win-win. We boost our exports. We help the African nations with infrastructure.
Mama.
Good to see you.
Good talking to you, man.
Yeah.
Good talking to you.
You need that back.
Put some dubbies in the chat for this guy. It's a win. Win. Thank you so much.
It's time to unite the kingdom.